Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing something completely different, looking at my 1957 Austin-Healey 100-6. Now if you follow the Healey market or bring a trailer, this car might look familiar to you. That's where I picked it up. It was listed as a project car. It was a no reserve auction and I bought it sight unseen. As we walk around you will see it is certainly a project car. I felt like the seller was extremely honest about the condition of this car. They did not try to hide anything. They included a number of pictures, including a walk-around video, a cold start, and a test drive. They did not try to oversell this vehicle for what it is, and I appreciated that quite a bit about this auction. Now, there's a lot of bad, for sure. As we look at the wheel tubs here, you can see they're pretty much rotted all around the seat support. The little shut boxes on these early Longbridge cars are starting to come loose from the inner wheel tubs, especially on this driver's side here. So you can see as I close the door, it has a lot of movement to it. Down there in front of the wheel tub again, this side has lots of holes, and they did a great job of showing all of that in the video. But there's also a lot of good about this car, and that's kind of what drew me to it. And I could tell from the videos that this car is what I call a survivor. I mean, somebody has had this and put a lot of effort into just keeping it on the road and just being able to keep it going and running and driving. And we can see there's all of these really old kind of patch panels that somebody installed in here and that they riveted in place. I had to remove the one that was down here just to see how bad it was. Then as we open the door structure here along the shut panel, you can see there's a reinforcement here. There's rivets all along the shut panel, and there's a little patch down there reinforcing this entire area, keeping it all nice and solid. And those are old. Those have been there for quite a while. On the floor up here, there's another set of patch panels right there at the bottom of the toe board. So somebody has put just a lot of effort into keeping this thing kind of closed off from the elements and just kind of trying to mitigate some of the rust and the rot and keep this thing going. And that's something that I always find interesting and I like about some of these. I mean, when you get into restoration, that can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes, where people try to hide things or they just cover up problems that just slowly get worse. But I mean, probably at the time some of these patches, like this one down here, were put in, it probably just wasn't available to have the proper replacement panels and things like that. But as we start from the front of the car, you can see there's also a lot of good on this thing. Someone had come through at some point, replaced all of the steering components in the front. All the tie rods are all nice and new. The alignment of the car was way off. Like the tires up here were towed out about 1/2 an inch. I had to fix that right away when I first got it. But they had gone through, they'd cleaned the radiator and flushed it. They put all new radiator hoses in here. Most of the rubber lines under here have been replaced. They came through and cleaned up the coil. The distributor was going through. They repainted the valve cover. The carburetors were removed, sent off. They were flow tested, rebuilt. So the engine does start and runs, drives beautifully. It does smoke a bit. I did pull the valve covers off here, and the valve seals are pretty much non-existent. So I will be addressing those shortly. A lot of the wiring under here is pretty terrible. Really the only thing I've had to do to make it sort of street worthy, where I can actually drive it relatively safely, is back here at the back of this throttle assembly. There's this little throttle rod here that attaches to the carburetors through these kind of little U-brackets, which you can just barely see underneath here. And this rear one actually rests inside the firewall. There's a grommet back here, which the camera is not picking up very well. And inside that grommet there's a bushing. And the rod sits in that bushing and it kind of holds it in place and it pivots off of that. Well, all of that was missing and completely gone. It was just all blown out. So every time the throttle would be pressed and this rod right here would pull down, this whole arm would flex about 1/2 an inch or more. And so there was just tremendous amounts of slop in the accelerator pedal. And then when you'd finally pick up that slop, it would mess up the geometry so much that you couldn't really just transition into RPM very smoothly. And then it would hang up and it would just kind of hold the RPMs hanging or the car would just rev up exceptionally fast. I mean, got to put air quotes around that. I mean, it is just a little Healey motor in here, so it's not the fastest thing in the world, but still, it's not great having it where you just can't get off the line very consistently. So I took care of that. I do still need to come back through here and replace the bushings that go in this rod underneath here, as those are still worn out, but for now it does run pretty well. It's at least nice and smooth on the transition. Also under here we can see that the transmission is much cleaner than the rest of the car. The transmission was pulled out, rebuilt, some new gears were installed, new synchros. The overdrive unit was completely overhauled. It has all new switches on it as well. So the overdrive functions beautifully on this car. They installed all new clutch hydraulics. They installed a new clutch. The flywheels resurfaced. In addition to that, they went through and replaced all of the soft lines for the brakes. They're all brand new. Some of the hard lines in the front of the car are new as well. They even went so far as to put in new cables for the handbrake as well. All new wheel cylinders on each wheel, including new brake hardware. So the car runs, drives, and stops considerably better than what you'd think just looking at this at first. You'd think that, okay, this thing's probably been sitting for 20, 30 years and it needs a bit of everything, but that's not really the case. It runs and drives quite well now, especially with the alignment being fixed. There are a couple of issues where the headlights just aren't very aligned well, and some of the fittings up here just aren't very proper or installed correctly. So I have to come back and clean those up as I go. As we look at the external panels, really this driver's side over here, this lower section of the fender is really the only external panel that has any kind of visible damage or issues with it. We'll be patching this up as we go. But as we look, all of the other panels are in extremely good condition. Even the original rockers are here. There's a little bit of surface rust on them. And down at the back where they actually would be welded to the inner sills is a little questionable on some of them. But like these doors, there's no filler in these. There's no rust anywhere on the doors. The rear quarter panels are all in beautiful shape. There's no real dings, dents, filler anywhere. It's just a lot of the paint chipping off, but there's no rot or anything like that. Coming to the other side, it's much the same. This side is all really good as well. There's no filler over here. There's no rust, no rot, no bubbling even. Just the paint flaking off where it's been painted over multiple times. But the doors are nice and solid. They're not aligned very well. And also some of the gaps for where the fenders and the quarters bolt on is pretty terrible. And that's because underneath here, those sills are just gone. So they just kind of came up with stuff to bolt those to. So because of that, my plans are to kind of just leave the car as it is right now. Like, I'm not going to just start by stripping everything down and just going at this all at once. I'm going to work on this in phases. What I mean by that is I'm probably going to start by just taking care of this passenger side over here, replacing the outriggers, getting that sill replaced, replacing that front float or floor toe board section, taking care of this inner, replace the sill. If the rockers are salvageable, I might keep those. If not, I do have replacements for them. And then I'll be sandblasting everything kind of as I go in the sections that I'm working on. I'll epoxy prime it and paint it as I'm working through. I'm not going to be keeping the original Austin-Healey blue, even though it is a beautiful car and it is surviving in a couple of places. You can see it under the hood here in a couple of spots. I would love to keep that color, but because I plan on doing this in stages, I don't know that I'd ever be able to get it to match appropriately. So for now, I'm just gonna epoxy prime all this in kind of a satin black, and I'll probably come over and hit it with a gloss black as I go. And when I'm finished with the car, and I kind of get all of that taken care of, my plan is to paint it red and black. I'll do the duotone with the top up here in black, and then the coves along the side will be in the Colorado red. And then for the interior, I'm probably going to do a duotone interior. This was originally the dark blue interior. Somebody had come through and replaced some of it at times, just kind of black homemade panels and things like that. But I think I'm going to go with a duotone look instead of kind of the solid red. I'm going to keep like a black panel up here at the top, do like a red face, black carpet, red seats with the black piping, and then for the door panels I'll probably do the red exterior panel here, and then for the inner kind of mat pocket as I call them, I'll probably do that in black as well, and then just have all of the black carpet back here with the red buckets. I've seen one car done that way previously and I thought it just looked fantastic. Moving into the trunk, everything back here is in pretty good shape except for underneath the actual gas tank. The floor under there is pretty much shot, but the boxes back here are really nice and solid. All of the supports are all great back here. Even the inside of the inner wings are all really solid back here. I did pull those mats out a little bit to be able to see behind them. So there's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of good. And like I said, the fact that this thing is a running, driving car, there's not a whole lot that I had to do to it to just kind of make it mechanically sound on the road. I will come through and kind of weld this section back up if I do keep it like this for now until I come through and redo this whole side. Since this door does like to pop open, but I think that's the beauty of something like this, is that I can just take it out, go get coffee with it, enjoy it while I'm working on it. I can just take care of this whole side, get all this inner structure taken care of, and then I can just slap the quarters and the fenders and the door right back on, leave them red like this, and just go drive the car around. And it looks okay if you're standing about 20 feet back. And I mean, people have already come up and checked it out and give me some compliments on it, even though it looks a hot mess. I mean, you just don't really see the Healeys that much here in Michigan. And there are just a couple of those little things for safety's sake that I'll take care of. And then once I get the driver's side done and taken care of and get all that inner structure done as well, that's when I'll probably pull all of the shrouds off both sides. I may pull the engine out at that time, just that I can come through, sandblast all of the underneath here, then repaint all this, and that's when I'll come through and kind of finish the suspension overhaul and things like that. And then that's probably when I'll do the actual repaint of the car. But for now, having a nice running, driving project, something that I can stay motivated about by getting behind the wheel, where my Impala over there had it for 5 years, only put a mile or two on it. It just kind of takes it out of you after a while, where something like this, where you can just get in it and run and drive as you're fixing it up and kind of take it at the pace you want, but still be able to enjoy the car. That was the great appeal to me about this, and that was why I spent as much as I did, which it might be a little bit high. I mean, a lot of the Healeys I've looked at around here are usually just rust heaps, they don't even run. So finding a running Healey was a bonus to begin with, but one that's actually sort of mechanically sound and doesn't need a lot of that work was just a huge bonus for me. So I'm going to pull this out of the garage, we'll get it running here, give you another walk around while it's running and show you that it actually does run pretty well. So I've got it moved outside and we can kind of take it in now out here in this cloudy sunlight. And once you get a little bit away from it, just the Healey styling tends to take over. And even though that paint is in terrible condition, and never mind the toothless grin there or the traffic going by, but I mean, once you take a few steps away, even though that paint is terrible, it just looks like a cool car. It does have that Monza exhaust on there, which does sound pretty good. There is a little bit of smoke still. I'll get a rev of it here in a second. But it does make good oil pressure. It's been sitting here warming up for a number of minutes now. RPMs bounce around, as does the fuel gauge over there. But again, I mean, for having a nice running, driving project like this, it's just exactly what I was looking for. So I'll get this set up, give you a couple revs, and then we'll put her away. So that's going to do it for the Healey for today. Next up on this car, I'm going to be pulling out these floor panels right here to get access to the outriggers, and I'll start repairing those. I'll probably make a video out of that series since there's not a whole lot of great videos out there for these Healeys. I know the Austin-Healey restoration project had a lot of good ones. Don't know if I'll be able to quite compete with the level of detail they had, but I'll at least try to contribute a little bit. But until next time, again, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoy these old kind of restoration projects like this, and I'll catch you later.